Hi, I'm Summer.
And I'm Mike.
And we got married.
With children.
We're going on 2 years of marriage.
But we've been together for 10.
He brought 2.
She brought 2.
Together, that's 4 kids.
That's way too many kids.
And we want to share what works for us.
And what doesn't.
For step-parents, co-parents, marriage, being your best self, managing work, family, friends, health. We're going to talk about
everything.
You ready, babe?
Always.
Well, hello, listeners, and welcome to another Everything Always podcast. Today, it is just yours truly, and it's because I am interviewing an author, a writer, editor today. She's all the things, and she's amazing, and I'm so honored that she accepted my invitation to be on the show because I read her book a few months ago, and I loved it and just completely resonated with it. And as I've said before, I get really excited when I find some content that I actually relate to and resonate with that is a little bit more, shares the perspective of many different people in different situations instead of showing that there's just one way to do something. So I want to tell you some interesting stuff here, and then I want to tell you about our guest, and then we'll just dive right into the interview. But back in 2011, we're 2019 right now. Back in 2011, there was a report stating that 95 million adults have a step relationship. So that's 95 million unexpected experiences, 95 million unique perspectives, 95 million laughs, 95 million tears, and 95 million new families. And I got this from our guest's book. Her name is Samantha Waltz. And she's been writing since she was a child. She's sold her first story at age 11. That's Chloe's age. She sold it to a local newspaper. And then she had stories that were published in American Girl. She later was an editor and at Mademoiselle. She's written books called Parenting for Patterns in Child Rearing, Parenting Gifted Children. She wrote a book called Gifted Child, Masterpiece in the Making. And she's got over 60 personal essays in anthologies, and she's got another anthology called Ask Me About My Divorce and Why We Ride. And this book that I loved is called Blended, and it calls on her experience as a step parent, a family therapist, and a teacher of classes and workshops on parenting and child development, and even working with step parents in these workshops. And we'll talk about that in the interview of what she's actually learned, what she thought she was in for, that it was going to be all, a piece of cake, and what it actually turned into. So Blended explores step families from the inside out through the perspectives of 30 writers who know what it's like firsthand. And some of these stories are funny, definitely poignant, always deeply personal, and they really capture the essence of step families in all of their weird and wonderful varieties. The journeys range from the first encounters between new step relatives to marriages, honeymoons, daily experiences, and divorces. The diverse voices in Blended reflect the realities of today's world in which yesterday's ideas of family structures and types just don't cut it anymore. Parents, children, siblings, aunts, uncles, grandparents, cousins, all of these relationships change when families are melded into one. And the writers of Blended help explore the truth of what these new relationships look like, and especially what they feel like. I love this book because there's really funny stuff in here. There's also times where I read it on a plane, so there's times where I was tearing up by myself. And there's really unique perspectives, things that I hadn't thought about before. And the biggest thing for me is that it makes you feel like you're not alone. And in a world where there is so much of this going on, 95 million, and obviously it's grown since then. That's 8 years ago. There's so much of this stuff happening, so many challenges, so many different dynamics and struggles. And yet there doesn't seem to be a lot of people really opening up and talking about it. There's a lot of anonymous stuff out there, and I totally get why. because you've got families and people involved. But there's a lot of here's what to do, here's what not to do. And a lot of that definitely works. It's so great to get the different perspectives of so many different people and their different experiences. So Samantha and I are diving into all of that today, and I'm going to quit talking and we're going to dive right in. Hi, Samantha. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Summer. I am so excited to take part in this. I'm really appreciating your podcasts and what they offer to families.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's a super important topic, and I'm so excited to learn more about you. I know a little bit about you from what I've read after reading your book, which I really loved. I bought it on Amazon. It got shipped to me just in time for me to take a flight. This was months ago, and I pulled it out and I couldn't put it down because I just loved the stories. So I wanted to ask you first, how did this book come to be? How did this become an opportunity for you? And why was it so important for you?
In no particular order, I've done a lot of personal essays, had a lot of personal essays published, and some of them were with Seal Press. So I loved the storytelling aspect and feel like that's how people learn best. That's how I learn best, from story rather than how to. So when I was about to go into my second marriage, the kids were from his two previous marriages were adult as mine were. The youngest were in college. But I still felt like I wanted to get myself geared up. So I went looking, and I didn't find a book like I've done. So that was kind of on back burner as I had a crash course in, there's still a lot of challenges, much as you love them, and I love them to death. The other thing that played into it was when I was doing a lot of other parenting workshops, and before I was a step parent, I led a workshop, and I was like, I was asked to do one on step parenting. And I thought, that'll be a breeze. Maybe not a breeze, but right. It's going to be communication, problem solving. So I got in there, and this is in the intro. I put up my bunch of paper, and I'm like, okay, what are the issues? And wham, loyalty, grief, expectations, scheduling, bio moms, stepdads. And I was like, this is like a brand new page.
Yeah.
As I said, that's in no particular order, but both from working with parents and step parents and from my own experience, it's just such a major field. The other like push for blended in story is that every family is so different. Not only, and you address this beautifully in your podcast also, not only are they may be traditional, non-traditional in their configurations. They have different issues, and books like How To, and then they give you 7 rules for how to be a great blended family, I don't think address the depth of complexity that folks face.
Well, that was the big issue for me when I started to seek out support. And I thought, well, okay, how can you narrow it down to just these? Which some of them, they're definitely, you can put them into action, and I'm sure you can have some success. But I was like, there's so many different dynamics, and I was struggling to find the things that I was going through. And then when I saw, it was just the very first story, and I was just like, in every single story, even though it was different in your book, there were so many things that I related to. And so it was like this compilation of like, I related to that story, and then that one over there, and then that part in that story. Like it was so great because it made me feel less alone. There's not just one way and that's it. I loved that.
I'm very proud of the book. I have wonderful writers, as you know.
You do.
Forward by Ariel Gore, who is just phenomenal.
I know.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you how you found them.
I have, as I said, been writing for a while. And so I had contacts, my editors and other writers, and then they suggested writers. And then I feel so fortunate. I always wanted Seal Press for this book. So I pitched it at Willamette Writers Conference, and they said, Krista Lyons, who I worked with, was fabulous, but she was also I didn't realize at the time, but she was already developmental editor. Before the proposal and everything, she was saying we have to have some big names. So it was a series of people would give me people I knew, they would give me the people they knew. A few people would give me the people they knew, and I'd go, oh, they'll never say yes. And then Cassie Primo Steele, wonderful writer and poet, said, writers are generous, and they really are. So I have, like somebody said, you got an original poem from Marge Piercy, and Phil had never used a poem before. And I was like, yeah. Anyway, I just, like I said, I'm just so fortunate because they were so generous. And also, I was pretty gutsy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
to ask. And of course, they could say no and not contact me and whatever. But yeah.
That's what was so great for me, is that they were so open in their stories. And I feel like people are very hesitant. I mean, I might read something on the internet, but it's usually anonymous. Even writers or families that have written to us choose to be anonymous because they don't want, it's so tricky. They don't want to reveal what it is that they're going through, or they don't want to put their name to it because there's children involved, there's ex-spouses involved. And I loved that these people were so open about their situations and, the challenges that they had, which some of them were very, very unique that I hadn't even thought about.
Yeah. So one or two changed their name. Originally, a handful of people changed their names. And then most of them said, you know what? I want my name on this.
Yeah.
I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the project, or whatever their process was. And I wanted to honor them always.
Yeah.
So in a couple cases, they were like, don't tell my local newspaper. And that's totally their right, because they know their situation and they know who's going to be offended or upset. And then there were all the conversations. Yeah, they were very, very honest. And that's a big question for memoirs. Several of them have written books after the story, a couple had written books before the story, memoirs. And it's a big decision how much you're going to share. And they were brave.
Oh, yeah. I would love to dive into your experience as a stepmom and having a blended family, and what you learned after doing this project, what your takeaways were after reading these stories.
Okay, so my experience, my very personal, so I will get very honest, having said very honest. My personal experience was probably the displacement issue, where the kids are really important, and oh my gosh, I'm so glad they're important now, because their dad has Alzheimer's, and we're a team rather than them being wherever. Their relationships with him are paramount. They always were, and it took me a long, long time and a lot of effort, and they made a lot of effort. But to feel part of things, I felt like number 16 out of, 6 kids and then whatever. And that's an issue you don't face in a nuclear family. So that's one of my really honest things. Another thing that I want to say before I forget is some people try, and so do the kids. Mm-hmm. And I'm so lucky because I have strong relationships with all the kids. Or if I think I do. No, I love them too. But some moms and dads, stepmoms, stepdads, give their heart out, and it never works because expectations are so strong.
Yeah. When
you come into a blended family. And you and your husband talked in your podcast about putting each other first. Mm-hmm. And that relationship of the parents is so tried in a blended family. You have to communicate so well with each other and be so respectful of each other all the time.
Yeah.
Because your separate processes also, like you're going through whatever and he's going through whatever, and somehow you have to keep making your relationship work. And then I loved what you said about presenting a united front to the kids and then talking wherever, however. But that was my big thing. I just realizing, and then little things like I remember the first Thanksgiving, he had kids from 2 families. So the kids had a nightmare, scheduling nightmare in the first place. So I remember cooking 2 Thanksgiving dinners, a totally separate time for one of the families to be with their mom, their bio mom, and then a completely different meal, different food and everything that would work for the other family. And my kids, then I don't want my kids to feel left out. And that's another thing. And I have a story that focuses on step-sibs because my daughter and I were just talking about it. Then those kids, even if they don't live under the same roof, are supposed to magically appear at family functions as best friends. And they're not even sharing a bedroom or whatever, but everybody's going to live happily ever after. And sometimes they do, but I want to take my hat off to all of those that are the adults as well as the kids that are really making an effort.
Yeah, definitely. What was your relationship with bio mom and your relationship with your children's bio dad, if you can share?
I would say that I have not a deep friendship with either bio mom, but because they're grown up, we didn't have the same issues at all. So I do have to, I flit a bit from topic to topic, but in terms of my kid's dad, I listened seriously. I almost took notes to never talk about your spouse, your ex, never criticize them, because I was not perfect about that. And I think we both tried, and he might have been better than I was about not saying anything. But that's great advice.
Yeah.
I escaped that one. There are oh my gosh. And some of them are in here, like Kezia's story, that the relationship between stepmoms and bio moms is just excruciating.
Yeah.
And maybe on both sides. And some stepmoms' hearts have been broken and there's just no repair. And maybe bio moms as well. I just happen to know the stepmoms. So
there's so many different dynamics, with how they come to be the bio mom stepmom relationship. I mean, I've got a friend who's almost best friends with her stepdaughter's mother. And it's awesome. And it was a decision that they made early on. Then there's the situation of there might be an affair or something that happened where there's never going to be that relationship.
Not in this book, but I know in our Alzheimer's support group, there was a stepmom bringing the bio mom to group. They had become such good friends over the years. And that's, oh my gosh. But that's not even, I know there are a lot of situations that isn't even possible, but it was beautiful to see.
I think it's the wish for kids. I'm not best friends with my ex-husband's wife, but she's a lovely woman and I really like her and respect her. And I'm so grateful that she is their stepmom and my kids love her so much. And so we'll hug each other when we see each other. She's just wonderful. And there's a different dynamic on the side of with my husband and his ex-wife. And I know that the kids, my stepkids, wish, it'd be so cool if you guys were really good friends. And I think that it could have been that way, but they have more of a challenging relationship or have had a challenging relationship. And so for boundaries purposes and to keep things clean and, drama free, it made sense to go, okay, it makes sense for us. The best thing for the kids is to keep things strictly business. I just read, I think it's called Blending with Mashonda. I'm going to say her name wrong. Teifer, something like that. And the stepmom of her kids is Alicia Keys. And Alicia Keys in the book writes this incredibly beautiful foreword to Mashonda about, it's amazing. It's beautiful. And it's really, about the book is about, there are icky feelings that you're going through, and, who's this woman coming in trying to be another mother figure to my kids. And there's, all of the emotions they go through. And what's so beautiful is how they decided that the three of them, the biological father and Alicia Keys and Mashonda, they all come together and co-parent and do what they need to do. They're mature, they know how to deal with their emotions, and they do the right thing is really what it is for their child. And now there's new children involved as well. I love hearing those stories. The reality, though, is, at least what I see and what I read about, is that most people are not, they're not behaving that way. There's so much ego involved.
Grown-ups.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So speaking of ego, I just want to give a nod, no ego. I want to give a nod to my kids' stepmom, my first husband's current wife, or wife of long time now. She was a great stepmom, and she sent care packages to college to my son, or our son. Oh, she did some things I didn't do. And so step parents can also do that. They can give a richer world to the kids when they are, like you said, grown up. And if you and I can impact any of that, that's what we want.
Hey guys, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for taking a chance on us and listening to our podcast. Our goal is for you to not only learn from us, but to learn with us. We've taken a leap on being pretty open about our blended family and how we do life in everything. We want to make sure we bring you all the things you want to hear, always. So please, if you have specific questions like, how do I get along with my ex? Or how do I get along with his ex? Or how do I set some boundaries in place? Or why doesn't my stepson like me? Please email us with your questions. Email them to info@summerfelix.com, because we want to answer those questions, and we aim to bring you the best guests and conversations to address your most burning issues about everything, always.
I always think to myself, you find yourself in, like you said, the best way to learn is through stories. And you find yourself in the different stories that you hear and the quote unquote characters. You relate to them, even if it is a different situation. There's things that you're either going to see about yourself that you say, ooh, actually, I'm going to call myself out on that one. Maybe I shouldn't be doing that. Or,
yes, what I did today.
Yeah. Or you're going to be inspired. You're going to say, I was in that situation. Look what worked for them. I'm going to do that myself. I mean, the best thing that we can do is take responsibility for where we are at. We are where we are at based on the choices that we made. And we are parents. We are role models. So the things that we do are going to impact the way that our kids behave in the future in their relationships. And so I often think to myself, okay, is this something that I would be proud of them for doing? So maybe I need to think about the way I'm acting. Do you have like really big takeaways from the stories in your book that were just like, oh, a big aha moment for you?
One takeaway I already mentioned, which was, and I read a lot of stories that aren't in there too, so it's like a pool in my head. Parents that gave their hearts and still couldn't work it out was a takeaway. Like, you want to think, oh, if you just love them enough, it'll be fine. And you definitely need to really love them a lot, but still isn't always fine. So that was a big one. A big one was the generosity of spirit of a lot of women. There's a woman that writes about her stepmother-in-law, difficult. And these are also wonderful women who I've gotten to know personally, mostly. Oh, just huge was something you guys talked about too, which is be so careful what you say about your spouse. Mm-hmm. I have a couple stories that are so tender and moving. Nancy Antoinetti's comes to mind, especially. And then you read some emails. We shape our kids' attitudes so much. You don't want them later to go, I'd have known my Gigi Rosenberg's another. I wish I'd been closer to my dad. My mom just mouthed him so much. And when I got to know him, he was a great guy. Yeah. And we missed all that time, or that we could never build that relationship or whatever. So the power of expectations was a takeaway, which I knew just from my general parenting stuff, but it's so amazingly powerful in step families because there are so many myths about the wicked stepmother and, the abusive stepfather is my favorite horror trap because there's so many fantastic stepfathers. But there's, step whatever can really have a negative connotation, hopefully, because blended families are almost the norm. Hopefully, some of that isn't true as much, but in the stories that I read, I saw that expectations piece coming in again and again. So the kid knows what you're like before you ever walk in the door.
Right. Yeah, exactly. When you were working with step parents and you had said, this is going to be pretty easy. We're just going to talk about the basics, communication and all that. What were the most common issues you were seeing and how did you help navigate those?
Just scheduling is huge, especially with young children.
And that causes a lot of friction, doesn't it?
So much friction because it gets into the bio step mom, dad dynamic. It gets into the kid. Like these kids can be so confused and lonely and like they don't have the coat they want at the other house. And so we need to put ourselves in the heads of those kids sometimes who are maintaining in two households. So the scheduling / bio parent thing was really a big one. Another one was my bias is mental health professionals, school professionals, make sure teachers know what's going on. So often teachers don't, and they just see a change in behavior and can handle it so inappropriately. I've been a teacher. And it's entirely different if the parent has died, if there's a divorce, if it's an amicable divorce, if it's a hideous divorce. What you're hearing at home, it's just a huge trip for kids. So in all of that flood, it's so easy to lose that. Meanwhile, these children are going through their developmental stages also. So some parents have to keep track of so much. So much, because you have all the challenges of step parenting, but then you have all the challenges of normal parenting, which is understanding child development, teaming well with the school, looking at friendship groups, looking at the confidence of your kid. It could go on and on. Really, I didn't even think of the word loyalty probably before that moment. And then I was like, oh my gosh. So can your mom really accept and support you loving your stepmom?
Yeah.
Or are you not being true to your mom if you do love your stepmom? And can you tell your mom that you love your stepmom without her feeling bad? And same with dads. But loyalty was a brand new one that really struck me.
That's huge. And Mike and I are actually going to be in a documentary that's all about parenting and, different types of families and all that. And so we were doing our pre-interview today and we were talking about that. And that was a big thing that came up was the loyalty that kids will feel, I'll make my mom feel bad if she knows that I love my stepmom. There's so many things that we might not have. Some of us have grown up with divorced families. I didn't. So all of this stuff was so new. But what I do know is I can see a huge difference in children that feel that security amongst all the parents involved, with feeling, okay, dad loves me, mom loves me, stepmom loves me, stepdad loves me. I'm super good. Nobody's making me feel bad about loving any of these people. Instead, they're promoting that I'm loved by so many, which is great. And you can see the difference rather than the child who's feeling guilty, like, well, I kind of had fun with my stepmom, but the bio mom doesn't like her, or, those type of situations. It's like, there's like this internal struggle and this guilt that they're feeling. And really what it ends up doing is it makes them feel insecure with themselves and not have as much confidence in themselves, which is so sad. I hope, and I know this is something like probably bring up on podcasts to come because I feel so strongly about it, is it's just a world of a difference for them to feel allowed, to have permission to love and be loved by whomever instead of feeling that guilt.
My son and my ex-daughter-in-law, both of whom I adore, are doing a really good job of that. I also wanted to mention, while I thought about it kind of along that line, is with older kids, and we ran into this, older kids, especially if the dad or mom has been single for a while, can have such an intense relationship with the parent.
Yeah.
And then another person comes in, and my youngest stepdaughter was able to articulate that she even felt, I don't know if she used the word jealous, but she might have, because she was so close to her father. It was so intense. She's in college, but she'd been living with him. He'd been coming down when she continued to do going down for dad days and all that. But it was really hard for her to share him. And like I said, fortunately, she could articulate that and we could work on it. Quote, man, that's just a challenge unique to blending families.
They just pop up too, because sometimes things are so smooth. I mean, this is like with any family, any relationship. You have these moments where it's just like, wow, we're kind of smooth sailing. Like it's harmonious, things are good, there's no drama, whereas 2 months before it might have been, horrible. This one's crying, these two are fighting. There's, all kinds of things going on. Do you have advice on how to, you were talking about communication, like when the big challenges come up and you feel fired up inside, like what's the advice to deal with that in the most calm and loving way, or a way that the family, the kids, like the roots still feel solid?
So my first word that came to mind was self-care, and that goes clear back to the beginning when we were talking. The couple needs a good relationship, but also a parent that's feeling really frazzled and fragile is going to have a harder time. So whatever can help you, the parent or step-parent, create a calm center. Somehow, I'm not, I know a lot of parents are having to go on 4 hours of sleep a night and work 2 jobs and whatever, but whatever can help you, first of all, to be okay with yourself.
Yeah.
And then you're just going to be able to take some better space around whatever else is going on. And then I think if you can then, I could have done this better a few times, but if you can learn to then create a time and space for a conversation. I can remember begging, I wasn't from a blended family, but I can remember begging my mom to just sit and talk to me for a minute, and it was her style to work. We always had, always had that generation or whatever. But I think that you consciously, for difficult situations, have to set up a time and a place that works. And then you could even, depending on the age of the child, say, we need to talk. When would that work for you? And try to get them to buy into having some kind of conversation, or if it's your spouse, the same thing. And then it's amazing how even very young kids really pick up on our heart. And then I think they need a ton of reassurance that it's not them. It's so if things are getting crazy, they didn't cause the problem. They didn't cause the divorce. They didn't cause their mom's cancer, which they can believe, by the way, especially younger, so that the communication is clear that it's like about a problem versus who the person is, and get like the division of accountability straight. They understand so much more than we think, so we just verbalize and share.
They do understand so much more. And you learn that as they get older too, and they're able to communicate their feelings. I know it's still difficult, even, as teenagers, but they're able to communicate more than they were when they were younger, but they talk to you about the memories and the things that they were thinking about back then. Just being able to communicate that and say that and feel that their opinion is respected and heard is just so healing. And when we as parents can have empathy for what they're going through instead of only worrying about what our experience is and how we're being judged and how we're getting along with this person or that person, we can really empathize with them and put ourselves in their shoes just for a minute. You know what I mean? Just like think about it. If that were you.
So I'm thinking of a couple little tricks. Parent effectiveness training from decades ago just popped into my head. If we can do I messages instead of you, I just changes the whole conversation. And then if we can, another trick, and it's from Rogerian psychology, which I'm sure you do and automatically, is to reflect what you're hearing.
Right. So
very basic communication skills coming into play here.
My husband does this, which is so great. If there was, some type of big issue that we're dealing with one of the kids or with us or whatever it is, some typical family issue, he will get calm, once everyone's settled down, and he'll do that, so what I'm hearing is, this is what you seem to be upset about, this is whatever, this is what I'm hearing. And I want to tell you what I'm feeling, and here's my takeaway. And here's how I think we could have done this better, or here's what I think we can do in the future when this happens, or here's how we can remedy this situation. You're feeling that you're not getting attention, or you're feeling that so-and-so is getting more attention, or you're whatever it is. And it is amazing. You can see the whole demeanor of whoever it is, the person is, the child, you just see it totally soften and become open because they're just being acknowledged. And all of us as humans, whether we're a child or an adult, we just want to feel acknowledged, like we're not a crazy person for having these feelings.
Right. And then, and I'm sure he does this, say, well, what are your ideas about this?
Yes.
So then problem-solving model where you're pulling out options from the kid as well as offering your own.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that one it is so good. So what do you think we should do? Yeah. And they get excited.
What would work for you?
Yeah, because now they have this idea, or they've probably been thinking about something. This is what I think would work. Yeah.
Yeah, they're amazing. Obviously, there are many things, but they're a resource.
Yeah.
A resource for ideas also. And that's really important. I'm glad you brought that out, because instead of us feeling like we have to have all the answers, then together as a family, we come up with a lot of the answers.
Yeah, absolutely. It brings you closer together too. I think what's so great for them to see is if you do feel as a parent you've made a mistake or you haven't handled something correctly, or maybe they've called you out on something, to own it is so great for them to see you own it and not always be, well, I'm the parent, so I'm right all the time,
Right.
You have a Facebook page. I know there's places that they can find out more information about you. Can you please tell me where? We're going to have this in our show notes too.
The book has a Facebook page, and then those posts go automatically to Twitter.
Okay.
And then I have also my timeline, and I have a writer's page. And then my website is pathsofthought.com, or they can get with my name, Samantha Waltz, is linked to pathsofthought.com. So they can get that. And then if they want to look, my writer's page has all my stories and whatever. So a number of those might seem relevant to them. That's Samantha Duclos Waltz, writer.
I love it. Listeners, I invited Samantha to be on the show, and I was like, I loved this book so much. I wonder if she would even respond to me. And you did. And I'm so grateful that you did. And there's so much for you to get out of Blended. It's so great. It's just, it really opens your eyes to all the different all of these different perspectives. It's incredible. And I'm just so glad that there is nothing else out there like it.
Oh, thank you. I'm really, really proud of it. So I love hearing that it's helpful. It touched you. And that's, the goal is that families will find what resonates with them. So thank you, Summer.
Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks so much for listening to our podcast. You know what they say, if you can't find what you're looking for, then you need to create it. So that's what we did.
Yep, I scoured the internet and looked for the tribe that spoke to me, and I just couldn't find the community that was raw, vulnerable, and really wanting to make a change to the millions of families like ours. So I decided to create it. It took about one conversation for my husband to say, I'm in, and here we are.
But it takes listeners like you to keep it alive.
So please, if you like this, write a review, take a screenshot, share it on your social media. Tell people, it means the world to us.
Remember to email us. We would love to hear from you.
And please share this with someone you love.
And be bold enough to share it with someone that you don't.